Amerigo Vespucci was an Italian merchant, explorer, and navigator from the Republic of Florence, from whose name the term America is derived. Between 1497 and 1504, Vespucci participated in at least 2 voyages of the Age of Discovery, first on behalf of Spain, 1499 to 1500, and then for Portugal, 1501 to 1502. In 1503 and 1505, 2 booklets were published under his name, containing colorful descriptions of these explorations and other alleged voyages. Both publications were extremely popular and widely read across much of Europe. Although historians still dispute the authorship and veracity of these accounts, at the time they were instrumental in raising awareness of the new discoveries and enhancing the reputation of Vespucci as an explorer and navigator. So, what's the catch with the famous sailor? And why was America named after him? This is History Uncovered, bringing you the story of the greatest sailor of his time, excluding Columbus, of course. Amerigo Vespucci. Vespucci claimed to have understood, back in 1501 during his Portuguese expedition, that Brazil was part of a continent new to Europeans, which he called the New World. The claim inspired cartographer Martin Waldseemüller to recognize Vespucci's accomplishments in 1507 by applying the Latinized form, America, for the first time to a map showing the New World. Other cartographers followed suit, and by 1532 the name America was permanently affixed to the newly discovered continents. It is unknown whether Vespucci was ever aware of these honors. In 1505, he was made a citizen of Castile by royal decree, and in 1508, he was appointed to the newly created position of Piloto Mayor, Master Navigator, for Spain's Casa de Contratación, House of Trade, in Seville, a post he held until his death in 1512. Amerigo Vespucci was the 3rd son of Nastargio Vespucci, a Florentine notary for the Money Changers Guild, and Lisa di Giovanni Mini. The family resided in the district of Santa Lucia d'Oinasanti along with other families of the Vespucci clan. Earlier generations of Vespucci had funded a family chapel in the Ognissanti church, and the nearby hospital of San Giovanni di Dio was founded by Simone di Piero Vespucci in 1380. Vespucci's immediate family was not especially prosperous, but they were politically well connected. Amerigo's grandfather, also named Amerigo Vespucci, served a total of 36 years as the chancellor of the Florentine government, known as the Signoria, and Nastargio also served in the Signoria and in other guild offices. More importantly, the Vespuccis had good relations with Lorenzo de' Medici, the powerful de facto ruler of Florence. In 1478, Guido Antonio Vespucci led a Florentine diplomatic mission to Paris and invited his younger cousin, Amerigo Vespucci, to join him. Amerigo's role is not clear, but it was likely as an attaché or private secretary. Along the way they had business in Bologna, Milan, and Lyon. Their objective in Paris was to obtain French support for Florence's war with Naples. Louis XI was non-committal and the diplomatic mission returned to Florence in 1481 with little to show for their efforts. After his return from Paris, Amerigo worked for a time with his father and continued his studies in science. In 1482, when his father died, Amerigo went to work for Lorenzo di Pierfrancesco de' Medici, head of a junior branch of the Medici family. Although Amerigo was 12 years older, they had been schoolmates under the tutelage of Giorgio Antonio Vespucci. Amerigo served first as a household manager and then gradually took on increasing responsibilities, handling various business dealings for the family both at home and abroad. Meanwhile, he continued to show an interest in geography, at one point buying an expensive map made by the master cartographer Gabriel de Valzacca. By 1492 Vespucci had settled permanently in Seville. His motivations for leaving Florence are unclear. He continued to transact some business on behalf of his Medici patrons, but more and more he became involved with Berardi's other activities, most notably his support of Christopher Columbus's voyages. Berardi invested $500,000 maravedis in Columbus's first voyage, and he won a potentially lucrative contract to provision Columbus's large second fleet. However, profits proved to be elusive. In 1495, Berardi signed a contract with the Crown to send 12 resupply ships to Hispaniola, but then died unexpectedly in December without completing the terms of the contract. Vespucci was the executor of Berardi's will, collecting debts and paying outstanding obligations for the firm. Afterwards he was left owing 140,000 maravedis. He continued to provision ships bound for the West Indies, but his opportunities were diminishing. Columbus's expeditions were not providing the hope for profits, and his patron, Lorenzo di Pierfrancesco Medici, was using other Florentine agents for his business in Seville. A letter, addressed to Florentine official Piero Soderini, dated 1504 and published the following year, purports to be an account by Vespucci of a voyage to the New World, departing from Spain on the 10th of May 1497, and returning on the 15th of October 1498. This is perhaps the most controversial of Vespucci's voyages, as this letter is the only known record of its occurrence, and many historians doubt that it took place as described. Some question the authorship and accuracy of the letter and consider it to be a forgery. Others point to the inconsistencies in the narrative of the voyage, particularly the alleged course, starting near Honduras and proceeding northwest for 870 leagues, about 5,130 kilometers or 3,190 miles, a course that would have taken him across Mexico to the Pacific Ocean. In 1499, Vespucci joined an expedition licensed by Spain and led by Alonso de Ojeda as fleet commander and Juan de la Cosa as chief navigator. Their intention was to explore the coast of a new landmass found by Columbus on his third voyage and in particular investigate a rich source of pearls that Columbus had reported. Vespucci and his backers financed 2 of the 4 ships in the small fleet. His role on the voyage is not clear. Writing later about his experience, Vespucci gave the impression that he had a leadership role, but that is unlikely, due to his inexperience. Instead, he may have served as a commercial representative on behalf of the fleet's investors. Years later, Ojeda recalled that Amerigo Vespucci was one of his pilots on the expedition. The vessels left Spain on the 18th of May 1499 and stopped first in the Canary Islands before reaching South America somewhere near present-day Suriname or French Guiana. From there the fleet split up. Ojeda proceeded northwest toward modern Venezuela with 2 ships, while the other pair headed south with Vespucci aboard. The only record of the southbound journey comes from Vespucci himself. He assumed they were on the coast of Asia and hoped by heading south they would, according to the Greek geographer Ptolemy, round the unidentified Cape of Catagara, and reach the Indian Ocean. They passed 2 huge rivers, the Amazon and the Para, which poured fresh water 25 miles, 40 kilometers, out to sea. They continued south for another 40 leagues, about 240 kilometers or 150 miles, before encountering a very strong adverse current which they could not overcome. Forced to turn around, the ships headed north, retracing their course to the original landfall. From there Vespucci continued up the South American coast to the Gulf of Paria and along the shore of what is now Venezuela. At some point they may have rejoined Ojeda, but the evidence is unclear. In the late summer, they decided to head north for the Spanish colony at Hispaniola in the West Indies to resupply and repair their ships before heading home. After Hispaniola they made a brief slave raid in the Bahamas, capturing 232 natives, and then returned to Spain. In 1501, Manuel I of Portugal commissioned an expedition to investigate a landmass far to the west in the Atlantic Ocean encountered unexpectedly by a wayward Pedro Alvarez Cabral on his voyage around Africa to India. That land would eventually become present-day Brazil. The king wanted to know the extent of this new discovery and determine where it lay in relation to the line established by the Treaty of Tordesillas. Any land that lay to the east of the line could be claimed by Portugal. Vespucci's reputation as an explorer and presumed navigator had already reached Portugal, and he was hired by the king to serve as pilot under the command of Goncalo Coelho. On the 17th of August 1501 the expedition reached Brazil at a latitude of about 6 degrees south. Upon landing it encountered a hostile band of natives who killed and ate one of its crewmen. Sailing south along the coast they found friendlier natives and were able to engage in some minor trading. At 23 degrees south they found a bay which they named Rio de Janeiro because it was the 1st of January 1502. On the 13th of February 1502, they left the coast to return home. Vespucci estimated their latitude at 32 degrees south, but experts now estimate they were closer to 25 degrees south. Their homeward journey is unclear since Vespucci left a confusing record of astronomical observations and distances traveled. Vespucci's voyages became widely known in Europe after 2 accounts attributed to him were published between 1503 and 1505. The Soderini letter, 1505, came to the attention of a group of humanist scholars studying geography in Saint-Dié, a small French town in the Duchy of Lorraine. Led by Walter Ludd, the academy included Matthias Ringman and Martin Waldseemüller. In 1506, they obtained a French translation of the Soderini letter as well as a Portuguese maritime map that detailed the coast of lands recently discovered in the western Atlantic. They surmised that this was the New World, or the Antipodes, hypothesized by classical writers. The Soderini letter gave Vespucci credit for discovery of this new continent and implied that the Portuguese map was based on his explorations. 1,000 copies of the world map were printed with the title Universal Geography according to the tradition of Ptolemy and the contributions of Amerigo Vespucci and others. It was decorated with prominent portraits of Ptolemy and Vespucci and, for the first time, the name America was applied to a map of the New World. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed our video. Don't forget to subscribe if you're interested in learning more about the true side of history. See you soon on a brand new update.